Hey, this is Mike Hambright with the Flip Nerd VIP show. Thanks for coming back for another great episode. Today I have with me Bill Bronchick, who is a jack of many trades. He's an attorney, an author, a well-known speaker. He's an investor himself, and the host of LegalWiz.com. There's a whole bunch of other things we'll talk about. But before we get started today, let's take a moment to recognize our featured sponsor. RealtyMogul.com is an online marketplace for real estate investing, connecting borrowers and capital from accredited and institutional investors. Get a rehab loan fast and close in as little as 10 days. Rates start as low as 9%. We'd also like to thank National Real Estate Insurance Group, the nation's leading provider of insurance to the residential real estate investor market. From individual properties to large-scale investors, National Real Estate Insurance Group is ready to serve you. Please note, the views and opinions expressed by the individuals in this program do not necessarily reflect those of FlipNerd.com or any of its partners, advertisers, or affiliates. Please consult professionals before making any investment or tax decisions, as real estate investing can be risky. Hey, Bill, welcome to the show.
Thanks for inviting me. Pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. Well, glad you're here. So you obviously have a ton of things going on. Why don't you'll do the best job of introducing yourself. Why don't you tell us a little bit about not just what you're working on now, but maybe your background about how you got started in real estate investing as well. But go ahead and introduce yourself to us.
All right, thank you very much. I've been a real estate investor since about 1992. I started part-time when I lived in New York, moved to Denver in 93 and became a full-time investor then. Hit the market at just a great time and came out here and stole a bunch of houses and made a lot of money and just kept buying and initially buying and flipping like most people do to generate money so you can live on, and then buying and holding and then doing exchanges into bigger properties and more properties into commercial properties and multi-units. And I've acquired quite a bit of real estate that especially the last 10 years or so, I've been really holding on quite a bit. I didn't buy anything stupid at the top of the market. Didn't lose any houses to foreclosure or anything like that because I just followed a very basic conservative investing principle that allowed me not only to do well in the good times, but not hurt so bad in the bad times.
Okay. And you primarily are investing in single-family homes or commercial, or
all the above. I do single-family homes. I do small apartments, big apartment. Well, depends what you call big, but the biggest apartment I've got is about 405 units.
Okay, that's pretty big.
That's still medium-sized in most people's book.
Yes.
And some other commercial stuff like self-storage facilities, mobile home parks, and stuff like that. Primarily now I'm focused a little more on commercial and the bigger projects, not so much the onesie-twosies anymore. Although occasionally I do a small deal if it makes sense and if I got someone begging me to give them to give me the house.
Yeah. Now, did you ease into more of the commercial and larger properties and start with single family homes, or did you start with doing bigger projects early on? Or a lot of folks tend to seem to kind of graduate to that, but I'm always curious.
I agree with that. I the only reason I ended up going bigger was because I had sold some properties that had a lot of equity. When I did an exchange, I had something money I needed to put somewhere that was bigger than what I sold. And that's how I ended up with some apartment buildings. And then when I started with apartments and how much money I made in those, I said, wait a minute, this is a whole lot easier just to do it in bigger chunks. And I know it's a mental thing more than anything. When people when they get into the idea of commercial, they think, well, I can't raise $1 million or I can't come up with $2 million or $500,000 or whatever it is. And it's actually not that difficult.
Yeah. And so, and where do you invest geographically? Are you all over the country or primarily just in the New York and Denver markets? Or
I'm not in New York anymore, but in Colorado is my primary market for especially my single families and small multi-units. I've got about 3 dozen stuff in the Denver market that is my bread and butter, but with commercial I'm all over. It doesn't make sense when I live in Denver to buy a house in Indianapolis because there's too much work to go into the due diligence of it and putting all the players together. So if I'm going to go out of my state, it's got to be have a scale that's big enough to make sense.
Right. Okay.
And I'm in a lot of markets. I'm in Texas. I'm in Arkansas. I'm in Indiana. I'm in Colorado. I'm in Oklahoma. So there's stuff all around that I'm invested in. Some of it with partners, some of it myself, and so forth.
Yep. And so, as an attorney, did you have any involvement in real estate before you became an attorney, or was that the kind of catalyst that got you into real estate, or kind of talk a little bit about how you?
No. I started practicing an attorney, and when I went to do my first closing, I asked a real estate broker friend of mine to give me some business. Basically, in New York, the attorneys are involved in transactions, and he said, "All right, so you know what to do?" And I said, "No, I don't know what to do." And he goes, "Are you kidding? You went to law school, right?"
Right.
I don't know what's going on here. I learned it by doing.
Yeah.
Much. So I had done a handful of closings before I had done my first real estate transaction as an investor, but the attorney thing, it helped to some extent to understand the concepts a little bit, but I didn't really give me a leg up on anybody else. And I mean, I started like most people did. I went out and did it. I read books. There wasn't many seminars in New York, because most of the seminars were in Florida and Utah at that time. Mm-hmm. So I had to fly around the country to go to a seminar. And there wasn't that many books either. The one book I read was Mark Harrelson's book, The Courage to Be Rich. And that's an old book for those of you who are watching. That's an old book on real estate. But that kind of gave me the spark to go do it.
Yeah. Okay. And so from an attorney standpoint, are you practicing attorney still actively? I know you have LegalWiz.com. Why don't you tell us a little bit about LegalWiz? Yeah,
I'm going to practicing attorney, but with a pretty limited client base in real estate business and retirement plan setup type of stuff. So if people need an estate plan asset protection, or they need to set up a self-directed retirement plan, that's the kind of niche that I do as a lawyer. But the more of my time is spent going out and finding deals that my clients have, because that's what I discovered the wealth is. It's not charging $400 an hour. That seems like a lot, but when you have a lot of overhead, you're not netting that much.
Right.
It's when my client comes to me and says, "Hey, can I pay you to do this?" And I go, "Wait a minute, how about you just make me a part owner of it, and I'll really do it."
Yeah.
That's really my main focus. So I have properties that I manage, not directly, but I have a property manager, but indirectly I manage. And then I have my law practice. And then LegalWiz.com was a platform that I launched about 1997 or so. Just screwing around on the internet, came up with a name and started giving out free forms and advice. And all of a sudden, all these thousands of people from all over the country started coming to my website. So asking for information, and there's hundreds of articles on that website for free. And also we do sell information products that you can either download or listen to, or video on demand and stuff like that.
Okay. So it's for those that aren't familiar with it, it could be a resource where you can go learn things about legal questions they have. That's primarily what the site is all about.
Right, and it's geared towards mostly small business entrepreneurs and mostly real estate investors who are most of the visitors to the site.
Okay. And so in your experience, I asked, for folks that watch our show, they've heard me ask this question before, but it's always something that I like to get different perspectives on. What do you think separates or differentiates successful real estate investors from unsuccessful? Because there's quite frankly, there's a pretty large failure rate if you look at folks that at least have an interest but never do anything about it, or try to get started but never get out of the gate. I mean, what do you think differentiates those that are successful from those that maybe never get started or are unsuccessful?
It's all mindset. Whether it's a hobby that you want to get really good at, or whether it's a business you want to be successful, or an investment you want to be successful at, you got to put in your hours. In the book Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, he talks about the 10,000 hour rule. And you have to apprentice or work at your trade for 10,000 hours before you really get good at it. And most people give up after about 3 or 4 hours. So that's the learning curve. Most people just never get past it because they do something, they don't get results immediately, so they quit because they're sane.
Right.
So you have to have a little bit of of vision and being able to can persist through the failures, and eventually you get the success, and then you overcome that learning curve, and it gets a lot easier. Most people just never get past that.
Right. And I think it doesn't help either that a lot. When I was getting started, and I had no experience in real estate investing, we had. We bought a franchise, so that was part of the issue.
Sure,
but we have family members and folks like that are, friends and family that they just thought we were nuts. Like, what are you doing? Like, why would you find deals and other people buy them from you? Why wouldn't they just go find those deals themselves? It's like, well, okay, you don't realize until you've been in this business how hard wholesaling is, or finding wholesale deals.
Right. Well, people don't realize, as you said, the word business, it is a business.
Right.
Stock market is an investment. It's a hobby. You can do it part-time. It has a very low learning curve. The real estate market has a much higher learning curve as a business, but the good thing about it is once you get past the learning curve and you get educated, it gets easier and you make less mistakes, whereas the stock market, you could screw it up no matter how smart you are.
Right. Yeah.
So
awesome.
That's what I see the big difference between the people succeed and don't. It's just they don't persist hard enough. They give up too easily.
Yeah. Yeah. And what about as an attorney? What do you think makes what is a good real estate attorney versus if for folks that are looking for an attorney, what do you think they should be looking for in terms of a real estate attorney? What makes somebody a good real estate attorney?
Well, it's going to be experience. Experience is one thing, but experience sometimes is a negative because attorneys who don't invest also get ideas in their head about the way things are, at least from his viewpoint. And then there's the real world where there's investors doing things that are contradictory to that. I think as a lawyer, when I advise clients, I try to give them the pros and cons, or maybe a better way to skin the cat that is a little safer, and so they don't screw up and get sued or blow up the deal. I'm going to warn them of what the potential pitfalls are, but ultimately the decision is up to the client. I'm not a deal killer. I've never been one. A lot of attorneys are deal killers, and they think their job when a client comes along with a risky deal is to kill it. And that's what he's doing a favor for the client, and I just don't subscribe to that belief. So a good attorney would be great if they actually were a business person and investor too, so they have both the practical side and the legal side. The legal side says don't do this, and the practical guy goes, of course I'm going to do this. It makes me money.
Right.
A lawyer's going to tell you go get a bonded, licensed, insured, yellow pages contractor who's got all the bells and whistles, but we don't want to pay $90 an hour to change a toilet.
Right.
So get Joe Handyman to do it. That's the practical versus legal side of it.
Right. Okay. And so, do you think it makes a difference if an attorney is investing themselves versus not?
I think so, or it just has the business experience to see the difference between the theory and legal theory and then the practical reality. There's a gap there that I've certainly bridged very well because I do both, and I'm able to share that with people. But someone who's strictly a lawyer and doesn't invest or doesn't do their own business, it's armchair lawyer advice. It's not always practical.
Right. So for somebody that has a lot of advice to give and certainly a lot of opinions too, I'm sure, tell us about some of the, I know you have a number of books you've written that have been bestsellers, and why don't you tell us about some of the books you have out and how folks could find some of those if they want to learn more about your philosophy?
Sure. Well, I have 5 books that I've written that are published by big publishing houses that are available on Amazon.com. And also on my website at legalwiz.com. And also we have a number of home study programs, streaming on demand programs, downloads, articles. I mean, LegalWiz is just loaded. I mean, you could write a 1,000-page book on the information that's on legalwiz.com. That's mostly free.
That's great. So if you want to find out more, just go to LegalWiz instead of
trying
to sift through.
Yeah, and then you can sign up. I have free membership where you can sign up, where I have a bunch of great videos that you can get really good advice and information, not just fluff, but 4 or 5 hours worth of free videos.
Okay, great. And I don't know if you're actively involved anymore, but I know you're one of the co-founders of the Colorado Association of Real Estate Investors. I'm a huge proponent of RIA clubs, and in fact, I've made that for folks that visit flipnerd.com. We only have about 4 tabs on the site, and one of those is a RIA club finder, which will improve over time. But I'm a big fan of RIA clubs because everybody I talk to started out by going to a RIA club and didn't know what they were doing, and were surrounded by maybe a bunch of other people that didn't know what they were doing, but together and through some of the vendors and support of the club, they found out how to make their way in this way. So I think it's really kind of the backbone of the real estate investor community. But why don't you tell us a little bit about your experience with starting that club and how it helped you? I'm sure in many ways it helped you learn a lot as well, even though...
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I started the club in 94 with my partner at the time, who was my mom. And I really didn't want to have anything to do with it. She just said, look, this will be good networking, and then you could find more deals this way. And I said, all right, whatever, we'll start the club. And then eventually, she moved and handed it off to me. And I said, all right, what am I going to do with this thing? And I just kind of molded it into a forum where people could not only network, learn, but it's just sometimes just moral support. You need to be around like-minded people, the mastermind principle of Think and Grow Rich, that are doing the same thing. So when you go home and your aunt, your uncle, and your cousin, and your neighbors tell you you're insane, it's good to be a place where you can go. Everyone thinks, no, you're not insane. This is what we do. We're all crazy real estate investors.
Yep.
So I'm a big proponent of that too. I think people should go to their local RIAs. And find who's the more experienced people and kind of latch on to them best they can, and use the resources of the group. A lot of times they have seminars or they have trainings and things like that. All good stuff, because again, it's that 10,000 hour thing. If you can get past that 10,000 hour thing, either by doing it or by by leveraging the experience of other people who've done the 10,000 hours,
Right.
you can definitely get past that learning curve a lot quicker.
Yep, yep. And what do you think? Well, I've got you. While we're talking about RIA clubs, what do you think is the right balance? I interview a number of RIA club presidents and things now, and we'll continue to do so. What do you think is the right balance in a RIA club? Because there are some clubs that are, probably more salesy than educational, because the club business is a business for most folks. It's a thankless business. I mean, because
that's for sure.
Yeah, they're not. It's hard to see how they make money, and obviously a lot of folks do it to help feed business to maybe a law practice or a title company, or do deals with people and things like that. But why don't you talk a little bit about your kind of philosophy on the balance between education and...
I think people get caught up a little bit too much on the, quote, sales issue. And it's like you watch TV for an hour and they put on a commercial, you don't throw your shoe at the TV and say, oh, damn, there's a commercial. As long as the speaker that is presenting is articulate, entertaining, and most of all gives good content, then if they have something to sell, you can buy it or not buy it, no big deal. But my experience has been when we bring in people who are not polished speakers, who are just like a local mortgage guy who's probably giving really good practical advice, everybody's falling asleep. Because it's either you hire and pay professional speakers to give just content, or you hire speakers who have something to sell, who will speak for very little or for free. And that's how they monetize what they do, by the revenue they get from selling their books and tapes. And hey, if you get 3 or 4 good ideas from that person and they had something to sell and you didn't buy it, so what?
Right.
So I don't think there's anything wrong with having speakers who sell stuff. I know there's a certain segment of the group that always go, oh, they always have something to sell. As they're walking out with the books under their arm on the way out. So I think that's a more of a red herring. As long as the information is good, if there's a commercial with it, so what?
Yeah, in all honesty, I think in my experience, which is limited in the real estate space, I mean, in terms of time, in the early day, I guess 6-8 years ago, it felt like there was less education. I think most people that have something to sell now know that they need to go educate, and from that, some sales may occur. It's not like
it used to be days where they'd come in and say, "Hey, on page 42 of my book, you'll find blah blah blah." They wouldn't give any information. You'd listen for an hour and a half and go, "That was really entertaining, but what the hell did he say? I didn't get one piece of information." I don't think most speakers are like that anymore.
Yeah. There's been some evolution.
Some evolution there. They understand that that you need to feed people some information, otherwise they're just going to turn off. Right.
So why don't you tell us, what do you think is going on in the market these days? Here we're sitting here in February 2014, and a lot of folks are feeling the markets are getting tight. There's a lot of inventory that's a lot of low inventory levels in most major markets, and
same thing everywhere. Pretty
lots of hedge funds buying up stuff and overpaying for things, and just making everything tight right now. Interest rates are still low. If you had a crystal ball over the next year or two, let's talk about just kind of residential. Well, let's talk about residential or single family first. But what do you think is going on, and what do you think is going to happen over the next year or two?
I think we're still going to see tight inventory. I think lenders know that if they flood the market with the rest of our inventory, they're going to ultimately get less. So they're propping up the market somewhat artificially in a mini bubble so they get more for their inventory. And that's a good thing for us because it keeps prices up. And if you buy a house, you have it sold as soon as you put a for sale sign on it. That's the good news. The bad news is, if you're working the MLS, there's no inventory. But there's still thousands of people in every market who are motivated from divorce, foreclosure, loss of job, death in the family, whatever, that you can find. So I think, in my experience, the for sale by owner game hasn't changed. It's still good. It's just that the MLS game has changed, where there's just, instead of having 40,000 properties on the market, there's only maybe 10 or 12. So you're right. And hedge funds have pulled out of a lot of those markets, and it has caused a slide in a lot of those markets. So for example, LA, which was going up 22% a year, all of a sudden has fallen in the last 8 months because the hedge funds pulled out. And it's returned to a normal market. So a lot of markets that dropped 50%, went up 25 in 2 to 3 years, are now going to flatten off to probably 4 to 8%, which is healthy, which is fine. So that's what I think we'll see in the next couple of years. Interest rates going up a little bit, not a lot.
Yeah, they have to eventually. But, and what do you think about? Do you think differently about commercial?
I think that depends on the type of commercial in the market you're in and the class within that. So, for example, multifamily as a class, especially on the BC side, is going to remain very good because there's just not a lot of inventory nationally. There's not a lot of building of, they don't build C-class apartments unless the government subsidizes it.
Right.
So C-class apartments are stuff from the 60s that used to be B 30 years ago.
Right.
They're not building new C, so that's a good market for investors. B-class apartments, still good, still a solid investing market. The new stuff, that's where the competition is because that's where it's being built. There's a lot of inventory, and number two, being eaten up by things like hedge funds and real estate investment trusts as your competition.
Right.
So I think apartments on the BC side are good. I think that hotel, believe it or not, in a lot of markets is doing very well. Light industrial is doing very well. Office, that's a crapshoot because the long-term trend is people are working from home, telecommuting, working in virtual offices, and there's a bad long-term demand for that and shopping malls.
Right.
eBay and Amazon just killed that.
Yep. Yep.
So, but there's opportunity in every market. It's the same basic formula. Find someone who's motivated, whether it be residential or commercial, and strike a deal.
Yep. Yep. Well, tell us about some of the things you have that you might have coming up that folks can, where to see you or where to find you at.
On my website, legalwiz.com, you can click on seminars, and I have a number of them coming up. I have about every 2 to 3 months, I do a seminar, usually in Denver. Great place to visit, whether you want to come skiing and write it off or come in the summertime and go camping in the mountains. It's wonderful. Yeah. But I have the next one I have coming up is an apartment investing seminar, so how to make money in small apartments. I'm going to go through 2 days of that, of how to find them, finance them, negotiate them, bring in partners, and put it all together with not a lot of money out of pocket. The only thing about commercial, be able to understand this, you can buy apartments with no money out of pocket. Not hard to do. Probably even easier than single family. But the due diligence is going to break you. Because it's not $300 for an appraisal for a 40-unit apartment building.
Right.
It's $3,000. And you can spend $3,000 and then not close the deal and you're out $3,000.
Right.
But if you spend all that money up front on an apartment building and then get partners to replenish that, you can walk out of closing with no money, even money out of closing, and own a piece of a deal.
Right.
Not that hard to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Well, hey, I appreciate you coming on the show today. It was good to meet you. And
my pleasure.
Yeah, and so what we'll do is we'll add links for legalwiz.com, which just go to legalwiz.com, but we'll add links for that and some of the other things we talked about here today so that folks can get a hold of you. And appreciate you being on the show and appreciate your information and your insights, and I'm sure we'll be talking again soon.
My pleasure, Mike. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Have a great day. Are you a member of FlipNerd.com, the most robust real estate investing platform in existence, where you can find off-market wholesale deals and great vendors literally in your market? You can get access to advice from experts and learn about local clubs and events right in your backyard. If not, please visit FlipNerd.com and register for a free account. You can register in less than a minute. It's pretty much the coolest site that's ever existed in the real estate investing industry, so get on over to FlipNerd.com.